going to call the Budget Committee meeting and public hearing to order on, this is April 8th at 6 p.m. And have a roll call, please.
Drew Carter, here.
Jill Hauser here.
Tom Divney here.
Greg Fuller.
Elizabeth Varney.
Christy Wood.
Okay. And can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and now we have to do the organization of the board.
I kind of like the way it is. Make a motion for Beth for chairman.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Okay, we need a vice chair? Greg?
You want me to come up with somebody?
I'll make a motion to nominate Greg for vice chair.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay. Any old business? Nope. All right, I guess now we open the public hearing for the proposed revised 2026 operating budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the record, my name is Ryan Heath. I'm the town administrator. I'm just going to give you an overview of what you have in front of you and what we'll be talking about tonight. I do have all of the primary department heads that are being affected through these changes and are a part of it here tonight to come up and speak one at a time specifically to their budgets. I also have the finance manager who made a lot of the mathematical changes and especially through the benefits and retirements involved in any of these positions, so I'll have her speak as well on that, if that works for the board. So just to start off, like you said, we're here tonight to discuss a 2026 revised operating budget. At the original town vote, we all know that the operating budget that was originally proposed was voted down. And we are currently to the default. With the language in the warrant, the governing board had the option of voting to hold a special meeting to take up the issue of just the operating budget. We're not bringing any other warrants or any other articles forward in this special meeting, but a proposed revised operating budget. So what you have in front of you is a few different supporting documents. The first one is a spreadsheet titled Comparative Statement. What this is a breakdown of the entire operating budget, line by line. The highlighted areas, and when I say the operating budget, these are the areas from what had originally been approved to move forward to what the revised budget is being proposed now. Line by line, the yellow highlighted areas are the areas where we made changes and reductions to come up with what would hope to be a more agreeable budget for the general public to support moving forward. What this shows, and we will go line by line, I'm just explaining the documents right now. So basically, in short, this comparative shows you that the original proposed was, the original proposed was $10,791,640. The new revised budget that is being proposed tonight is $10,132,064. And at the bottom, you see there's two comparisons. And I know that when I talk to the Board of Selectmen and some of the stuff that I've heard from the general public, there's two different figures as far as percentage increases. And we broke them both out here so you can see where those numbers come from. So the 25 approved default, is what we've been operating off of. Till something is established, the 25 default is that number where there would be absolutely no change from last year. So from 25's approved default to the revised operating budget being proposed tonight, there is a difference of $403,122. It comes to a 4.1% increase over 25's default. Now, if the second one, what we're clarifying is 26 approved default has changes by law. If you remember when we presented the default, there are slight changes by either contractual or statutory requirements. So the increase for tonight's proposed budget over the 26 approved default is $336,503, and that equates to a 3.4% increase over the 26 approved budget. And there was some confusion with that, so we were trying to hope to clarify that by including both of those calculations in tonight into this public hearing and for the Budget Committee. To go along with this comparative statement, you have a larger packet that's titled Town of Alton 2026 Revised Budget. The point behind this, again, is every line item in the proposed operating budget, but it also has in the bold notes. These notes are what is included in the proposal from the department heads or the finance manager. So those notes actually break down positions, they break down different dues, fees. It's like the older school justification sheets we used to use, where there would be lined out justifications. This is a new finance software, so it breaks it down this way. So the information in bold below each line item is where the justifications come in. And again, those changes on the budget have been highlighted so that you can easily pick out where the changes, whether it be increases or decreases, have been made from the original proposal. In an overview, before I turn it over to the finance manager to talk about these changes, what we've been able to do and what we've brought forward tonight to see, like I said it earlier, to see if it's more agreeable for the townspeople moving forward. We looked at the positions that we currently have vacant and what we have open. So we identified 6 positions, 2 through DPW, 2 through fire, and 2 through police, that are currently vacant and open. The proposal that's in front of you is removing the funding for those 6 positions that are vacant right now and redistributing the money to the occupied positions that we have within the town. Also being able to save on those benefit plans and the benefits that come out of the benefits line, which again, we'll get into details on that. The bulk, and I know the Budget Committee is well aware of this, but speaking for the public as well, or to the public, I should say, not for, the original proposed budget that had brought forward, one of the biggest changes in that budget was not expenses, purchases, or a big project. It was the 4 full-time firefighters that the town had voted on in a separate warrant article. And the addition of those 4 full-time salaries and those 4 full-time benefits was a substantial increase over last year's default budget. That's why the only option for us moving forward to adjust and come in at maybe a more agreeable one was to address wages, was to address vacant positions and benefit packages, because there really wasn't a lot of other areas within the budget that we could make big changes or make up a lot of ground, because we were coming down from roughly a 700 and actually it was almost The other budget, the original proposed budget was almost $1 million, about 950,000 over the default at the time. So we were trying to make extensive changes to get something that we could work with and, again, be much more agreeable for the general public based on the feedback that we have received up to this point. So at this point, if the board doesn't mind, I'm going to turn it over to Laura Parker, our finance manager, who worked with all the department heads to make these budgetary changes, and she'll actually go down through the numbers. And then, of course, we'll bring up the department heads and answer any questions. At any time, if there's a question that pops up, don't hesitate to ask either myself, the finance manager, or department head. So go ahead, Laura.
Okay, well, I think we should just go through them.
Sure.
But I mean, the department heads, mine is just the, the administration part, the benefit packages that, we were able to reduce. If you look at your Town of Alton, the revised budget, the one with all the justifications, the original request, justification is still there. We did not remove that, we actually just added to it what we were reducing. So you could see technically our need and then what we're taking away. I removed the 4 vacant positions that are not gonna be funded in 2026 out of the health and dental. That alone was $135,000. And then for the police retirement, we're not covering the SRO, that was an additional, and a half a year of the patrol officer that is leaving, that's another $1,083. The employees' New Hampshire retirement, to reduce the amount reflected to all of those open positions that we're not going to be funding is $112,000, just in that section. And then the firefighters, the reduced amount to cover those open positions that cannot be funded is another $33,526, just in the admin section alone. Yes. Yep. So then if you continue on, and that's what, the comparative statement gives you those numbers just side by side so you can see it, but this one literally tells you what they're cutting in each section. Do you want to talk, Town Administrator, about the contracted services in the assessing line, the one ad?
Sure, absolutely. I'll just step in on this one. So the only area in which we added money is under the assessor's budget, the assessing budget. You'll see under contract services, there was an addition of $116,580,000. That's not above and beyond the proposal tonight. That's part and incorporated in that 4.1% or 3.6% that I originally had, or 3.4 or 4.1%. This is incorporated into that. And what we did is there was a warrant article that was proposed to open a new CRF for reval. So by law, we're required to reval every 5 years. Our reval year for the Town of Alton is this year. So we're required under RSA 75-8A to reevaluate the town. Typically, in the years past, we have put the reval cost into the assessing budget under contracted services. This was the first time since I've been here and as I've seen back that we have not included it under contracted services. Instead, we tried to take a more conservative approach by establishing a capital reserve. Because the cost of revals have increased substantially every 5 years, and that cost is getting burdensome in one budget cycle, we thought it would make more sense to allocate money each year leading up to that 5 years, so it wasn't such a big hit at once. That warrant article was defeated in regards to establishing a capital reserve and putting money into that capital reserve. So the money, because we're required by law, we have to do it. So we have to find the money somewhere. I did check with legal to make sure that there was no legal concerns about putting that money into the contracted services at this point, and legal felt that, you know, based on the fact that the warrant article was to establish a capital reserve and not just to fund the reval, that putting it under contracted services where it has always landed before, we're not creating a new line or not trying to put that money into an obscure area of the budget that wouldn't be the right location. Legal recommended go ahead and to put it in this revised budget, but that's why that money is in there. And like I said, we are required to do it by law. We're gonna have to do it, and if the money isn't allocated, it's just gotta come from somewhere else.
Okay, then if you go to page 24, you're gonna see the public safety. The wages for the police officers was reduced by 102,360, and then his holiday pay for those two positions as well was reduced. He also provided in your packet, you'll see at the end, he did all of his wages, he did his full budget separate, and then he did all of his wages and all of his holiday pay, because that was brought up that the bigger departments, you can't kind of fit this in his justification, but they are supplied every year. I don't know if he
Yeah,
wants to come up and
at this
speak on his
stage,
budget.
At this stage, we're gonna get into the actual positions, their wages in the individual departments. So Chief, if you don't mind coming up and speaking to your department directly, or for your department directly? Thank you. I don't know if that's on or not.
Hey, folks, Robert Tuggle, Police Chief.
Turn his mic on. Go ahead. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
You gotta get closer to the mic.
All right.
Or pull it up closer to you.
Yell at it.
I can yell at it. Do you guys have this?
Yes,
Yes.
we do.
That's what I operate off of. I really can't see the smaller one as well. But so, it shows you, real briefly, you can even see on the salary breakdown, how I've identified the two positions that we're not funding anymore, or at least partially funding. So we went for the 14th full-time spot, if you remember, because we couldn't use a retired police officer for that. They don't have enough hours under the retirement system. And so we had made the recommendation to add that 14th spot. Part of the justification of that is that we get reimbursed for the hours that that officer would work, but that we'd have them full-time in the summertime as a benefit. So that we have tabled and withdrawn. And then, based upon two notice of resignations I've received, and we have an anticipated retirement coming in June, I believe, basically looked and assessed how long it would take to replace an officer. It's usually a couple of months process anyway, just even if we find the perfect candidate on the first try. By the time you do the backgrounds and get all the uniforms and all that, it's at least 2 months per officer, so we settled in on a 6-month basically savings of salary. And so we took the average rate, and I identified it on that line. You see the 3414. That's in that veteran area. So that gives us a reasonably conservative area for savings, potential for longer, because it may take longer to fill some of those spots, all depending on how we make out. So it's still a pretty conservative approach, but the budget now reflects that subtraction in that salary line for the one officer we currently have, and then also removing that 14th full-time spot. And then on that final page, you just see we did basically the same thing. We removed for that 14th full-time spot any holiday pay, and then reduced by 50% for the one certified officer. Again, reflecting the turnover that we're gonna have to replace.
So, Chief, going through this, I see the salary reduction, and which makes sense based on the 2 positions for part of the year that would be open. But the retirement portion for under employee benefits is only $1,000, that difference.
I don't do the retirement side, so I have to defer to
Oh.
to Laura.
You're not on.
Turned it off, sorry. The second SRO, we did not budget for, because I was not aware of that position when he did his budget last year. So I'm only budgeting the officer that's leaving, the patrolman, for 6 months.
Okay, but we're gonna have 2 positions
Right,
open.
but one of them was not in the default already. So I can't cut that, because it wasn't there to begin with.
Okay, but even one position, the $1,000 does not seem to make a lot of sense when the retirements are, you know, 25% roughly of salary.
Right, but he was under the default, so if you're budgeting his retirement, you have to go with what they're actually paying, and they were already under because of the default budget for so long. Like the extra holiday day that we had to add, like all of that sucked up his portion. Do you know what I mean? The officer that's leaving would pay more than that in retirement, but the officers he has is eating up the other portion because we're still in the default. Like when you add a holiday in the middle of the year, like Juneteenth, they get paid for that, they pay retirement on that. That was not budgeted. So I'm trying to budget in full for what we will need instead of making it short moving forward.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So
It
she's
does.
covering the shortfall.
That's,
Okay,
yes, that was
so-
the key there.
Shortfall.
See, I
the
told you, I
shortfall.
kind of go around the thing,
Yeah,
but he
yeah,
gets
yeah.
it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, the shortfall. Anything else you wanna?
I think that's a good summary. I don't know if you have any further questions.
Okay, everybody good with the chief?
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, thank
Come
you.
back if you need.
He's not going anywhere
I'll be
anyway.
right over here.
Okay, so next it's page 28, and it's your public safety fire wages. And I know the fire chief is here as well to come and speak on his. And it literally outlines exactly what the reductions are in that one.
Good evening, James Reinert, Fire Chief. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Budget Committee, allowing me the opportunity to speak. Just a little brief history. In 2023, the town retained the services of an independent consulting firm to conduct a study on the fire department. One of those areas that were addressed was and studied upon was staffing. Besides leaving things status quo, which was obviously wasn't working at the time, their recommendation was to continue moving forward towards a full-time fire department, staffing 2 to 3 firefighters with full-time staff. There was an attempt to put this plan in place or in motion by incorporating 2 additional staff in 2024, the operating budget. Unfortunately, the town operating budget did not pass, therefore we were unable to hire those additional staff. In 2025, a special warrant article was placed before the voters and passed at roughly a 2-to-1 margin. Again, thank you, showing community support for the fire department. But however, here in 2026, we're faced with another potential default budget. Obviously, those budgets don't carry over because they're a special warrant article till we basically have a approved operating budget and or finding the monies elsewhere. What currently is proposed in the revised operating budget is to maintain the current staffing levels that include 2 of the 4 positions that were approved in last year's vote. This potentially will leave approximately 96 of the 336 hours understaffed. So we currently operate 4 shifts of 2 full-time personnel per shift. And we try to utilize a per diem member or on-call member to put us up to 3 at current staffing model to cover those hours. If we leave those positions vacant, obviously overtime is a costly endeavor, and trying to get that reduced or not being able to have those hours staffed, which could mean delays in response times if off-duty personnel are not available or relying on mutual aid, where several of our mutual aid partners are dealing with their own significant staffing issues. Another option would be to add money back into the revised operating budget to fund either one or both of the vacant positions. At a minimum, I'm strongly urging the Budget Committee to consider supporting at least one of the vacant positions. This would allow us to staff all 4 shifts with a minimum of 2 certified firefighter EMTs, allowing for an initial response and the ability to transport the patient to the hospital. That's kind of my pitch but if you have any other questions, I'm sure you do, I will do my best to answer them. And
Do you have an amount that staffing one of those would be?
yes. So, again, there's a span, if you will, because obviously my operating budget and then Laura's, or the town's operating budget for the benefit side, for on the wage portion of it, which comes out of the fire department, would be approximately $64,500. So that includes wages and the holiday pay for working holidays. Obviously, then there's the retirement and benefits cost, which without overtime is approximately 54,000 additional, but that would put a total for the position about 106,000 wages and benefits. However, because of the overtime, Laura can explain this better than I, how she incorporates the overtime, because obviously, overtime comes out of my operating budget as it is. We're not asking for additional monies for overtime because of the bottom line budget. And we're covering overtime with the monies not utilized from per diem members signing up for shifts. So that's where we're able to maintain. However, the town's portion of the overtime has not been funded properly because of the 3 years of default and moving forward. So, did I explain that correctly?
The retirement cost is compounded with overtime because it's it's per what you pay out.
Right, so if you look at the fire department's budget for the last few years, the overtime budgeted is like between $20,000 and $30,000. So when you do your benefits, you do it on what they say wages and overtime. But when you're spending $170,000 in overtime, you have to pay retirement on that. So those funds were not budgeted because I budget at $20,000 what you're telling me you're going to spend in overtime. So my figures, which I have this for the board if they'd like it, is about $141,000 to fund one firefighter for a year. We averaged, the finance team, we worked pretty hard. We tried to average their overtime instead of just saying, this person's gonna work that many hours, because you really don't know. It's gotta be an average. So we averaged it out based on the last few years.
If I may just elaborate a little bit further on the shortfall, again, talking about the shortfall, is the reason that the numbers match is because as we started to go to default, going into the third year of default, the transition from a call department or a per diem department to full-time had not fully taken effect. So the carry forward of the overtime and the budgeting is reflective of not the full-time coverage that we are and what the town had pushed for to move forward with. So that's where some of that shortfall came in, is because the budgets that were proposed in '23 and '24 had different amounts, but they didn't pass, so.
And the fire chief is right. He's covering the wages out of his other per diem lines, but not in the retirement because that's an admin budget.
So I have a question. Did the selectmen put back 4 firemen in this budget? This revised budget, or 2?
No, just 2.
Just 2 in this revised budget. It was originally
Okay.
proposed
All right.
for all 4 positions to be funded.
Okay. Thank you.
So I have a question, and I know very little about budgets. This is my first year here. Please excuse my ignorance. I understand the division from wages a little bit, and insurance or benefits, retirement. Because of the 2 vacant positions at Town Hall, in my mind, the planner and the building. So I'm guessing that those in their salaries that are perhaps accumulating or haven't been spent cannot shift over to the fire department. Is that?
So if we overrun, the way that it works is the budget that's approved is a bottom line budget. So we can move money from, the term move is different. We can overrun a line in another area as long as we have enough money in the bottom line to cover it at the end of the year. But I can't physically move money from the planning department to the fire department, so.
So I am just wondering, because I'm not sure how long those have been vacant, 3 months, 2 months. I'm assuming it would take probably another month to hire someone. I'm just wondering if that pool of money, those wages and benefits that haven't been spent yet, and if, like, the time to commit those would be like now during this budget process, right? I understand you want to have a cushion, and
Sure.
but anyway, I'm just wondering if that would be a possibility. It's the only place I see in this budget where there might be enough money to partially fund, maybe it's just, whatever the benefits are.
Yeah. Some of that money is being spent to cover, we had to increase the hours of a part-time building inspector. That's the only way we've been able to stay afloat right now. But there is some money there, you are correct, in that sense. What that's gonna equate to at the end of the year, I'm not sure, but.
Understand. Appreciate it. Thanks for the explanation.
Yep.
So Chief, if I understand this, that ultimately you would like to see $141,000 put into the budget for one more full-time firefighter that would get you up to your safe operating.
I'll use that term
essentially.
loosely, but yes.
Yeah,
Minimum staffing.
Yeah.
There are different NFPA requirements, and we won't get into all that, but just for the basis of, majority of what we do, obviously, is medical responses. It's about 68% of our call volume, and by state law, in order to transport a patient, we have to have 2 licensed personnel. So that gives us that opportunity for that initial call. Obviously, we have runovers and duplicate calls at the same time, so, but at least for that initial one patient, we have the opportunity with full staffing, and I use that term, again, loosely, with the 2 certified people to be able to transport. Yes.
How many times have you found yourself not able to adequately staff on an ambulance call, on that initial first call, not on when they get doubled up?
Currently, right now, because we are staffing with overtime, and we have not, I'll use the term, we haven't had a vacancy in our coverage currently. Obviously, we're treading very lightly, knowing the potential of the default budget staying as is. But currently, year-to-date for '26, we haven't had any, for that initial call, understaffed initial calls. Secondary, third calls, that's a completely different story. So '25, we averaged about 8% of what we call a duplicate calls for service. So we had our initial call, and within that transport time, and before we're clear, we tone for a secondary call.
Okay. And Laura, if I heard you right, that the overtime is running at about $170,000, where we are budgeting 30. Miraculously, that delta is about $140,000, very close to the cost of this full-time firefighter.
Yeah.
So I did hear all that correctly?
Yeah. Yes.
So I guess my question is, if you were able to cover the overtime costs somehow, some way, within your budget, can you find a way to reduce the other areas where you were robbing Peter in order to pay Paul for the overtime, and put that towards a full-time position? And then I understand that the insurances and the retirement and all the other bennies, that's a whole separate thing, that will be a flat ad, essentially. It doesn't the wages you've been able to cover, but the bennies are somewhere else. So really, the actual cost is about 60 grand, maybe 70 grand, somewhere in that neighborhood?
Well, if you're talking the 140,000, and you're saying he'd cover that, that's with the benefits.
Right, that's the full benefit package. The salary portion was 65,000-ish?
Yeah, it was,
60.
too many notes.
Because, yeah, he's taking the firefighter wage.
Yeah, so out of the fire department budget, 64.5, which would include my wage lines for hourly wages and the holiday pay.
Okay, so we're looking at 77,000. Sorry, I'm doing quick math on the fly. She's got her calculator out, she'll correct me in a moment. So that would be the actual, in theory, increase to this budget would be the benefits, because you can absorb the salary through other savings that you were going to be spending on overtime anyway.
Potentially. Again, it's not the overall thing is trying to get those positions staffed, so that our overtime is not all-inclusive of just staffing the shifts. Obviously, multiple calls, so we have people coming in off-duty. Structure fires, kind of all hands working, or multiple, it's pretty significant motor vehicle accident, or, a call out on the island brings in more people. So it's not just inclusive of just the shift coverage, the overtime we spend, it's also indicative of
Type of the work.
everything. So I want to be safer than sorry.
Yeah,
Not-
yeah.
just
I just,
shoot
when
myself
I
in
was
the
running
foot.
these rough numbers, though, it sounded like you're able to cover the overtime within your budget constraints.
Correct.
Even though we only have a $30,000 line item for overtime.
Correct.
So it seems to me that there should be enough room to cover that full-time salary because you will have less overtime cost, potentially.
Potentially. I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
yes.
So I mean, ultimately, what I'm trying to do is justify this,
Yeah,
this additional firefighters. What I'm trying to figure out how to do it with the least financial impact to the
And
town.
I truly, I understand the predicament that the town is in, and I'm trying not to be overly greedy, but also I'm advocating not only for the people of the fire department, but the community itself. And we are truly trying to put forward, and I'll use the term, a service, a product that the community's proud of, that they can rely on. Granted, nothing is guaranteed 100%, because we could have a major storm or something. And it's just, if we're gonna move forward with the recommendation of, the study and ensuring that the town is covered to a minimum level, I implore the community, the budget committee to really consider that. But again, I fully understand where we're at, and it's just not the fire department that's being impacted, but I'm partial to the FD.
One thing I just wanted to mention when you were talking about the numbers with the overtime, one of the things that we can't, that we couldn't absorb totally through the hiring of a third party is that built-in number for overtime for leave coverage between sick time, vacation time, because you got, 5 or 6 other full-time, there's that have vacation time, have that, so that number, no matter what, we can't make that number go away, because we always have to cover those vacant shifts, because we have just enough people to make that two-person coverage for the ambulance. So if somebody takes a week vacation of their earned time, that automatically needs to be backfilled.
So my initial, not to interrupt, but
Sure.
the way
No.
I had budgeted for overtime for '26 was, I based it on full-time, full staffing, and if everybody was able, or would take all of their earned time off in that full year, that took an average of what the firefighters make per an hour, multiplied it by how many hours everybody is entitled to. Not everybody takes all their vacation or uses sick time, but that was the number initially where I got for my overtime budget, to have kind of a baseline that brought it up from the 2023 budget of 20,000 that was initially, and that's what we've been working off for the last 3 years.
Okay. I don't know how the rest of the board here feels, but I feel strongly about trying to get this additional firefighter on. And I think that there may be some more numbers that need to be crunched, because obviously I was really rough around the edges with the numbers. But I don't know how the rest of this committee feels on that matter.
Looking at the demographics of the town in the 2025 report, I was struck by the aging population that we do in fact have, and as I get older, I notice more of my friends, colleagues, and fellow town residents need more medical care in a hurry sometimes. So I would lean towards having emergency medical techs available if possible.
Yeah, I support.
Did the selectmen consider what you have just shared?
No, I don't believe actually the selectmen, at the time, I don't think we had dove that deep into it. I guess now that I'm seeing the numbers in a different format, it gets my mind working in a different way, so.
The other thing I would like, I know it's fodder, but Ms. Hauser mentioned, obviously, we're an aging population, and looking towards the future and talking with the building department, the amount of permits that are being potential growth in this town in the immediate future of single and two-family homes. On an average household of 3 people, we're estimating potentially another up to 300 people, year-round residents, coming into the community. And just using year-round people, residents in my equation, because obviously we see a major influx in the summertime with, you know, out-of-staters or vacationers or whatnot. It could potentially lead to just on that number alone, a 5% increase in call volume just on the you know, fire and EMS side. So I'm just trying to give it as much information, forecasting for the future. This is a wonderful community, it's growing, and
I don't know if, in this moment in time, if hard numbers can be suddenly created that this committee can discuss and vote on.
I think if we push through the rest with the other departments and stuff, because the board's not gonna probably deliberate on a decision until they hear from the public and things like that, so maybe sometime with the chief and Laura, they might be able to hammer something out. No, and certainly if this board decides at the conclusion of all of their deliberation and listening of the public and stuff, that a different number is going to be recommended moving forward, that's certainly something I have time to bring back to the Board of Selectmen. My intention would be is that if we, whether the number be higher, lower, or the same, that whatever this board recommends to move forward, that I have time to bring it back to the Board of Selectmen if there's a change, for them to deliberate again and reconsider whatever that change is, whether it be higher or lower or whatnot, so.
I just have one last question. The call volume this past year, was it higher?
so we were basically even for 2024, and with the exception of, in '24, we had a major weather event in April, which was approximately, it increased our call volume by 100 that year, because of that one weather event with that storm in 2024. So looking at the numbers, basically 24 to 25, we were on par with the 24 numbers, and we didn't have that major weather event last year in '25.
And were those calls just in town, or were they also including the surrounding
So our
mutual
call
aid?
volume is based on all of our calls for service.
Okay.
Let's see if I have that number for you real quick. There was approximately, I think, 80 mutual aid calls out of town, and there was approximately 60 calls of mutual aid into town. So
Okay.
it was almost a wash.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Chief.
Go far.
No, I won't.
Okay, then on page 32, you're gonna have your Department of Public Works. His wages have also been submitted on a separate sheet.
Hey, Seth, how you doing? Thank you.
Good evening.
Just introduce yourself for the record. Just introduce yourself for the record.
Good evening, Seth Garland, Director of Public Works. So as Ryan had mentioned earlier, our reductions in wages are going to come primarily from 2 positions not being filled. They're currently vacant, the lead mechanic and a grounds and maintenance laborer. On the original proposed budget, there was also a proposal for a floating truck driver position. The intent was to utilize the funds from the part-time wages, was to make that position available. So by eliminating the floating truck driver, the proposed floating truck driver position, the lead mechanic, and the grounds and maintenance laborer, reduced our wages line by $190,000, 216, yeah, $109,216. Also from there, we adjusted the overtime for the positions that were gonna remain, and we did, reduce some overtime to the custodian reducing it from 40 hours to 10.
I'm sorry, who did you reduce?
The custodian,
Just overtime.
just the overtime.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
just how much we, you know, budgeted for overtime hours for that position. Years past haven't come close to that number, so I felt safe reducing the budgeted overtime amount for that.
Okay, all right, thanks.
And I'm sorry, that was from 175 hours down to 40 hours, it wasn't. Also under wages, our solid waste director has retired, and in doing so, we changed that position from a salaried position to an hourly position. That brought some savings in the retirement, as well as reduced the hourly wage for it to someone who didn't have 23 years.
That's everything from your lines, right?
And that was all, that was from my wages lines.
Right, and you feel that you're gonna be able to operate with the running that container truck with this staffing?
Yeah, so currently it's being operated by one of the members of Public Works. Summertime, our demand for hauling out of the solid waste facility does increase. Right now, we are in the slow period, so getting through the winter has worked out well. Waste is usually can be done in 2 to 3 days in the wintertime, depending on what the demand is. So around snowstorms, we've been able to get by, and I feel we'll be able to get by in the summertime as well. We do currently have enough staff to operate all the trucks in the wintertime, so all the plow routes are being plowed at the same time. We don't have to break routes up or anything, but it does get tricky when we have people that are sick. We have to split routes up, or I step in myself.
And how long have you been without a lead mechanic?
Since I've been here. Yeah. So we're going on our 3rd year. Fortunately, we did just hire a gentleman who's filling the light equipment operator assistant mechanic role, and he's been doing well at handling our day-to-day issues with the trucks, as well as the rest of the group has shown quite a bit of skill in getting by with getting the trucks back up and running.
Good, okay.
I feel that I must add, for the public's knowledge, that we've gotten by because of Seth's experience as a heavy diesel mechanic as well. So
I do also have
want to
some time
make
as a
sure
mechanic
that
myself.
that's known, that his experience has carried us along with the other guys that have all pitched in, and girls down there.
Yep, absolutely. I do have some time myself as a mechanic, so I have stepped in from time to time to help diagnose some of the bigger electronic issues with the trucks, but the rest of the crew's been very good at handling a lot of the physical mechanical work.
All right.
We're good?
Guys all set with
Good?
DPW?
Anybody else have any
Okay.
questions? That's okay.
Okay, thank you, Seth.
Thank you, Seth.
The only other changes, is on page 44, and that's the Parks and Rec.
Yes, Parks and Rec. Kelly, you wanna come over? Yeah. Thank you, Kelly.
Good evening, Kelly Trendle, the Parks and Recreation Director. So we had suggested two changes. One was for the concerts, was a reduction of $800, and that is because the trustees of the trust funds had generously offered to cover 2 concerts. We had requested that from them, and also there is no Old Home Week committee, so the recommendation was to remove $2,999 from that line item. So that was the total savings there.
So you're gonna have the same number of concerts?
Yes, we're going to have 10 concerts,
Okay.
and 2 are covered by the trustees of the trust funds.
Right, but that, that's not, what number did you reduce this to? Is it a net figure or a gross figure?
It was $800 off of the 5,500.
Right, but you're gonna have the same amount of concerts, correct?
Yes,
So it should be 5,500 in that number. It shouldn't go down. That's net budgeting. We have to gross budget, right?
Yeah, but those expenses are,
It has to be shown
Coming out
as
of it.
income or revenue or something.
but we don't,
We went through this years ago, and
Well,
it's
it'll
actually,
go out as an expense through the trust that she's talking about,
Okay.
that they're utilizing money through, but it's the same idea when we expend money for equipment from a capital reserve, it doesn't go into the operating budget lines. So
But you
they'll be
have to-
expending, but it was accounted for
but you have to
through the,
budget the full amount. So that number should be 5,000. She's saying no, I'm saying yes.
You only have to gross budget money that's not guaranteed. Like, we budget for the block grant. Do you know what I
So-
mean? This
so-
money's we already have these funds.
Has the
These-
law changed in the past 20 years?
No.
I disagree, but, okay.
This is guaranteed money, it's already there. She's just spending it.
Right, but that should be income, or it should be revenue, or it should be something. It should be listed there, not deducted here, right?
Yeah, the trustee lists it on their MS forms at the end of the year with the Department of Revenue. They list it as an expense.
They're still showing it at the 5,500.
But it's shown here. It's 47.
Yeah, well, she's got the 4,700 here, plus the, she's showing it 500 here.
Right, but that would be net budgeting. If there's revenue, or there's income, or there's something to cover the cost of the 5,000. All right, I'm all set.
Thanks, Kelly.
All right. Anything else?
so as far as the changes that are being presented tonight, and what we highlighted, that's all we have. Bringing that total again, no, just emphasizing that this does not include, that additional firefighter's position that was discussed earlier. So based on just the presentation at this point, with what was highlighted in the paperwork, the bottom line would be $10,132,064, which would be a $336,503 increase over the 2026 default. So, if the board doesn't have any more questions for me, I'll leave the table and open it up for
Open
the
it to the
public
public.
and everything. What's that?
Open it to the
Yeah.
public.
Make sure they state their name when they get to
Yeah,
the table,
I will.
please. Thank you.
All right, if anyone has any questions, you're welcome to come up and ask your questions, but please state your name and, go ahead, come on up, Robin.
Robin Lane Douglas, what else do you know?
That's okay.
First of all, to both departments, they do a good job. I think it's great. What I don't understand is mutual aid, okay? I believe, like New Durham has been getting a lot of mutual aid, am I correct? You said there were 80, well, somebody said 80 mutual aid response calls. So that means New Durham would pay Alton for that? Am I correct?
No.
No, that's not how it works.
You want to explain?
I'm just, when they say mutual aid,
Yes, ma'am.
I've been told that the costs are reflected back to Alton. Just like if somebody came from Laconia to help Alton, wouldn't we owe them?
No. So basically, the RSA states at some point, the community of Alton voted at a town meeting to allow the fire department to receive and give mutual aid. So
So-
that basically covers the fire portion of what we do.
Okay,
EMS is not considered an essential service by state law. So by state law, if New Durham, Gilmanton, Rochester calls for fire aid, or I'll just stick with that one right now, we are bound by law if we're available, basically, to respond. And it's
okay.
we're expecting that service in return if we need it,
So it's a,
give or take.
okay,
Correct.
okay, that's all
The
I
EMS
needed to
portion
know.
of it is a little different.
I wasn't attacking, I
No, no, I
just never
understand.
understood that.
So we will also, just from my personal perspective, so everyone's aware that I understand of the optics of other communities and what they're going through.
Correct.
I, in good conscience, if we have people available at Alton Fire and someone's in need of whatever it is, a medical attention in a neighboring community, and they request it, we're gonna send it. We can worry about the after effects after. We are still entitled to the billing portion of that for patients that we transport in other communities. We can also look at one of my,
Oh, we have to pay for that?
no. When I say billing, so EMS billing, so when we transport a
Okay.
patient, we bill the insurance, Medicaid, Medicare,
Okay, that's
for our
good.
services. So there is some sort of financial recouping of our services for the EMS side of it to mutual aid.
Okay, great, that's all I needed to know. But I could understand the extra person, because if you're sending an EMS and you're talking about another firefighter or whoever that person would be, if that person, the first person is given aid in New Durham, and in the meantime, Alton needs assistance.
It is a potential situation,
all right.
it doesn't happen often, but it is
I just,
potential.
I never understood it. I see you guys going by the house all the time.
Yep.
Never understood,
All right.
and thank you.
You're quite
You guys
welcome.
do a good
Thank you.
job. Thank you for answering my question.
You're welcome.
Right. Anybody else have any questions? Come on up.
Reuben Wentworth. Mr. Carter, Madam Chairman, I commend you on your efforts to come up with some numbers tonight. There's a lot more than what I saw the night of the selectmen's meeting. So I commend you on your numbers tonight. And I know you were putting them together fast. I would like to see the Budget Committee maybe go to the Board of Selectmen, take that $100,000 out of the assessing department, and tell them to get a backbone with the state of New Hampshire, because the town of Hampton sure did. They were just ordered finally to do a reval after 10 years. We're told at a selectmen's meeting, the fines and penalties will be enormous. I called the RA a week ago and asked them about this, their waiver. The RA automatically called the town of Alton assessing department. Told the assessor I was calling about this reval. Our numbers aren't that far off on our ratios of the reevaluations right now. But safety does matter. So if you could take that $125,000, put it towards the fire position, along with what you were talking about in the benefit package of the family plan, because the town always plans on a family plan for all vacant openings. So right now, you got the town planner's position. Yes, you have a part-time building inspector. No benefits should be given. Or it's a contracted building inspector. So right now, you're into 4 months. There's $16,000 out of the family benefit plan. You add that in with your 125, you just boosted up a salary position for a
140
fireman.
that we need.
I don't know why we can't say to the state on an unfunded mandate, which it is, it's an unfunded mandate, we have to do revals every 5 years. And I believe Concord a few years ago said they can't do unfunded mandates on the towns anymore. But I can't see why we can't go 1 year or ask Land Tax Appeals Board, can we forego the 1 year and we will put it back in the budget for next year to save a safety position? That would add one more to the fire department. If you go back through those numbers, the benefits and everything, you could afford that position. I don't know about the full retirement, but I don't know what was sent back to the general fund this year, or the surplus fund, if they want to call it that. Maybe Laura can tell us what was left over from the budget last year.
I can't at this moment.
Okay.
I'd have to look it up, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And I know it wasn't a whole lot considering what the budget was for the whole year, but it was, I think, a couple $100,000. There's a little extra money there if we mind our P's and Q's. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Kelly Sullivan. I've come to a few board meetings, I've been to some planning board meetings. Budgeting is difficult. At the town level, there's a lot there. I don't know where we come up with all the money, but I do feel we need the extra personnel down at the fire department. As has been stated previously, we have an aging townspeople. A lot of people retire here. We say we keep our taxes low for them, but we also have to be able to offer them the services that they require when they move here. We are struggling at the fire department level because historically, forever and ever, fire departments were volunteer-driven. So we know how the volunteer world works nowadays. It's practically nil, especially since COVID. In the post-COVID world, there is almost no such thing as volunteerism. So we really need to get our fire department up to where it needs to be with staffing and personnel, and then slowly add to that. And I feel that this is a growing pain, but it's necessary to be able to move forward safely for our town. Thank you.
Anybody else have something? Go ahead.
My name is Christine Hughes. I think Ruben touched on pretty much some of the stuff I was going to touch on. So I just have a few questions, first of all. Do we have a full-time planner yet?
No, we do not.
Do we have a full-time code enforcement office yet?
No, we do not.
Do we have a full-time assessment officer?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Do we have full-time assistants for those departments?
Yes, we do.
All three of those?
Yes.
Okay. So getting back to, I think Ruben touched on what I was saying. So you take the proposed budget, 90,230 for the planning, 8,541 for the code enforcement. All right, we're 1/4 of the year already with no salary to them. Now, I do understand we do have some contracted services, okay? So right there, you're talking about $40,000 that you can allocate towards the other employees. The other thing I would like to just kind of make a comment on is the average person doesn't even make $760 a week, okay? I'm talking about an average person. When you take what these department heads are making and then you figure out what the average person is, these department heads are making 2 to 4 times more money than an average person. So I think we need to start cutting some of the fat from them. I know everybody needs a raise, I understand that. But when you're talking about 2 to 4 times over the average of a citizen, that's very discouraging for citizens, especially those who are trying to make a living, do their own budget, and then they see what our department head make. So that's just a note on that part there.
Just a quick question. You say the average person, where do you get the average person's
Well,
salary?
so when I did some research, roughly $760 is what a person, I'm basing that on $19 an hour. Some is higher, some are lower, okay? But $19 an hour is 760, and these are gross figures, by the way, okay? Is 760 a week, is $39,520 a year. Okay, some of these department heads are making, so let's round it up to 40. Some of these department heads are making 80, 120, almost $160,000 a year. So again, that's what I think the town folk look at, and that's what they find discouraging. I'm not saying that the town doesn't deserve a raise. I feel bad that they haven't gotten a raise for 2 years, but I also don't think that for 3 months before the election, and now you guys are trying to tug at the heartstrings of the taxpayers to get them those raises. I think there's other ways that you can cut the budget moving forward, be it some cost in the budget, some salaries. I know you can't cut salaries, but maybe you can let them, go a year or two without it. A raise. Again, I'm just saying, it's very discouraging for the average person that, they see that the department heads are making 2 to 4 times more than what they are. And I thank Ruben because he touched base on exactly what I was gonna touch base on, allocating those, the first quarter of those salaries not paid.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything they'd like to say or add to anything?
I'm going to throw in another possible place to get some savings. And it does come from wages. The wages, the 4% merit raise is in the budget currently. And I don't know when the last time a merit wage was used in the town, so the figures might not be immediately available. But in the organizations I've worked with, they never made the assumption that everyone was going to get the maximum merit wage. So if you could take that down to 3.75 or something, again, if you've got some data, I'd be interested in hearing it. But because it is a merit wage, I think it's highly unlikely that every single employee in the town of Alton is performing at however you define the highest level of performance. Lori, could you calculate what savings would be if there was a 3.75 across the board calculation rather than 4?
It might take me a little bit, but yeah, I can probably figure an estimate for that.
And I do not mean to imply that anyone is underperforming on the job. I just want to throw that out. I've been pleased with what I've seen.
I'd have to change the. Keep going, it's gonna be a minute. I wasn't, like, it's all done differently.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Have the selectmen determined when they'd like this vote to take place? Drew?
Yes, the dates came out at last night's meeting, and I wish I could remember, June 3rd, 6th, June 6th, which is this Saturday.
Right.
Saturday.
Sorry.
7 to 3, right?
Just to clarify on your question, Greg, are you talking about when the vote for a budget moving forward, or
When the
actual
selectmen are gonna schedule it for the town?
town vote is June 6th, it's a Saturday from
7 to 3.
So it's a Saturday from 7 to 3 at the beginning of summer, when people have voted on this in March at a regular Tuesday, second Tuesday of the month, when they've always voted.
Yes. I'm sorry, is there a point you're trying to make?
The point is, I don't think you're gonna get as many people that voted in March as you are on June 6th on a Saturday from 7 to 3.
I think we will have less people in June than we would in March.
Yep, I know.
And you may very well be right.
Yeah, I don't understand why it's not 7 to 7 like it always has been. It's only 7 to 3.
Well, I think the idea was to put it on a Saturday to open it up to more people, make it more available than a Tuesday.
Well, not necessarily. You still have a lot of people who work on Saturdays.
I guess you could argue that, yes. Yeah.
That it would need to be until 7 o'clock, not a short day. That doesn't make, I mean, can you do it less hours than?
The board, they can shorten it, change the day, and shorten the hours, and I guess the mindset behind it, and that's not etched in stone. If it needs to be reconsidered on the time, the board can certainly reconsider that, until we post the formal warrant, which is on April 20th, I believe, is the deadline for the warrant that has to be signed and posted. But part of that rationale too is you're going from what do we have, like 32 warrants to one question. So literally, the turnaround for people to come in and walk back out is gonna be a third of the time. So that was the other thought process behind that, was how small, having a ballot with one question on it being posed versus, 3 pages. But it can certainly be revisited.
Well, that's the total wages, though.
That's the total increase.
Yeah, come on.
Oh, I thought that was your total raise.
No, that's the wages. So you want.
Oh, I went with the increase.
I don't agree with this Saturday in June. It's nice weather, people are gonna wanna garden, they're gonna wanna go off with their family. I definitely don't agree to the 3 o'clock, because if people work, they're not gonna be able to make that time frame. I think we should stick to a regular schedule that we've had in the past, which is a Tuesday from 7 to 7, so that people have time in the morning and people have time at night to vote, and they can still plan on, some people already have plans for vacation, and they're not gonna wanna come out and do a vote on a Saturday.
Why we have public comment.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I said this is why we have public comment, to get this information.
Right.
Thank you.
Come on up.
Okay, so now do I think this is all wages times 3.75, right?
Yeah,
No, yeah.
yeah. Yes. It's doing it the same way we do.
Diane Blanton. I don't agree. I think the Saturday would be fine. I could speak for where I live. The bulk of my neighbors are in Florida until middle of March, end of March. So I do think we'll have more people here in June. These are just snowbirds. These aren't the seasonal people. But a lot of my neighbors are snowbirds, and they're not here for the vote that we had in March. I think you're gonna have a lot more people in June. Saturday, Tuesday, I don't know if that makes a huge difference, but I do think you could get more people out, because there will be more people here.
Just add, and Laura mentioned a good point. One of the other considerations about Saturday is you figure when we have normal voting, we are on the school's calendar well in advance, and there was some concern as to whether or not, because normally the school goes to a teacher workshop day when we hold voting. So the concern was that we wouldn't actually be, the school wouldn't actually be available during a weekday on short notice. Not to say that it isn't, we can always check, but that was some mindset behind it.
I'll just let these people go.
Hi, Kelly Sullivan again. I think Saturday would work. I work, my entire family works on Saturday. I feel if you feel it's important, you will make the time, no matter what day of the week it is. I volunteered the entire day on the last town vote. I think people are, you can have your kids, they're doing sports, and you do have your things you do on Saturday. But I think it's easier to run up to the school because you're only voting on one item this time around, as opposed to 39 to 50 during a regular town vote. And I think that you'll find most people are going out on Saturday night, but they'll make the time to swing up for 5 minutes to do the vote on one item on a Saturday.
Ruben Wentworth again. I have to say myself, I don't mind if it's a Saturday, but 7 to 3, it's very inconvenient. Take some business, they're only open till 3 o'clock on Saturday, some are open till 4 to 5. During June, those are our busiest days, are on Saturdays. So if you're gonna do it, hopefully the selectmen listen to you and go 7 to 7. I know it's just one item, go in, go out. I couldn't get there in March until after I closed, and it was 6 o'clock when I voted, ran back, then came back down and helped with counting the ballots. Otherwise, I'd forego and ask people to just send in absentee ballots at this point. We are not here, the people of the community, for this government. This government is here for the people of the community. This is your budget that you're gonna present, just like the one in March was actually your budget, not the selectmen's budget. So I'm asking tonight, look at those numbers again, see how you feel. I think they can be moved around, but the selectmen should not be dictating this one. You folks should. This is your budget. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add? All right. Hearing none and seeing none, we will close public input.
Can I answer your question first?
Yep.
For
Oh,
Jill's
yep, sorry,
question?
go ahead.
So, is my thing on? Okay. So the difference between a 4%, and this is quick figures, trust me, and a 3.75 is $18,355.47.
Thanks, Lori.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate the
No problem.
the
It's quick, but
quick knowledge of the
I'm hoping it's
spreadsheets.
right.
Thanks.
So while you get your computer open, why don't we take a look at a couple of these things that have been brought up? Is there a way to quantify the savings on the benefits that were not paid out for the planner and the building inspector?
Okay, first, I think HIPAA violates if I can tell you what kind of plan those families were on at this moment, but they were not both family plans, and I didn't change them moving forward. So like, say one didn't take insurance, I did not change that in the budget. So there are not two family plans floating out there, waiting to be used, just so you know that.
Okay,
I did not change those, and they were covered part of the year if they were on a plan. So it's not a full year of a family plan just sitting there, just so you know.
okay. Let me ask my question again in a different
Okay.
way.
Sorry.
Can you quantify a dollar amount of savings that we did not spend on the benefits for those two positions?
Okay. So not knowing when you're going to fill them either.
We're gonna work on roughly
All right.
25% of the annual cost.
Let me tell you what we're saving. Hold on, I can pull that for you. Dun, dun, dun. Do you have anything else we can talk about while I feel like everybody's staring?
No
Like,
pressure.
I'm working up a sweat over here and I'm not moving. All right, let's see, benefit breakdown. Let's see what they save every month.
Well, I have one. I've been brand new to the
Yep, no,
committee.
go ahead.
I just noticed when I was going over the figures and that we have
$22,500 allocated for fireworks. I think if it's between a firefighter or a part-time employee and 15 minutes of fireworks, I think that money would be better allocated to either fire department overtime or something along that line. Because I'm sure there's overtime for 4th of July, for both police and fire. I don't know, I'm not the chair. I don't, there's no page
Yeah.
numbers.
Public input's not,
Yeah, so Tom,
we're
what
still
what
open,
line
you're
item
good.
were you referencing?
We
Under
didn't,
patriotic
we didn't vote to
purposes.
close it.
Oh, patriotic?
Kelly Sullivan again.
There's no page numbers.
So I agree with the fireworks a little bit, like, we're not doing fireworks for Old Home Week, because it's not necessary. That's an unnecessary expense at that time. However, 4th of July is a white elephant. If you lose your spot, it's very difficult. You'll probably never get it back. But also from the business side, from the business community, the people that it brings to the town that spend money within our town, I don't want to be short-sighted in that, and I just want to take that into consideration before we cut those fireworks altogether.
I'm just-
No, I'm just,
I saw something.
just a conversation, right? I just hear
interesting and
that,
bring
and
it
I'm
out, so
thinking
it's up
that
to the
draws
committee.
people to the town. I'm all about bringing people to the town, just, so that was just my first thought when I heard that. And I'm all about savings, but sometimes maybe somewhere else. Thank you.
We're also looking, to me, I just would rather pay for a firefighter than fireworks. 15 minutes of excitement.
Your savings would be about $7,800 for a quarter of the year.
For
The
health,
benefits.
retirement,
Nope, that's just health and dental, like that, the medical package.
You wanted the New Hampshire retirement too?
$7,800?
Yeah.
For two people?
Because that's what was in the budget.
She's talking about what was
Budgeted.
those two positions specifically, whether it be a single person, double person, or family plan. Without getting into those specifics, she's saying that based on what we allocate for those two positions that were previously filled, that's what 25% would be.
Yes.
So,
Did I answer your question?
25% a year?
Yeah, I want to get on that healthcare plan because that is a hell of a lot cheaper than mine. Wow.
You have a good negotiator.
Okay.
Quickly, I'm sorry, can I speak for a second?
Go ahead.
Diane Blanton again, and I'm with you on the fireworks. They're bad for the environment. We still always have a concert that night, so that still will bring people into the town, because I'm all about, yes, supporting our small businesses. But I would be absolutely fine if we got rid of our fireworks, because like I said, don't need to spend that money, and it's bad for the environment.
Ruben Wentworth, again, the reason I used the number 25,000, because looking at your numbers with the family plan, that's about what it's coming out to now. If the Board of Selectmen fills these two positions, and these two new people come in and want the family plan, then you're gonna be short. So there's just another thought. And that's why I used the 25,000, that's where I came up with my 16,000. Because normally, when I was selectman before, town administrators always came in on the family plan because you never knew what you were gonna get on a hire. Thank you.
Thanks.
Drew, I understand what your question was. You were talking about the benefits for the planning and the code officer. And you said it was 700 and...
No.
7,800.
7,800.
7,800, I apologize. But what I'm talking about is you take the proposed salaries.
Yes.
90,230, and you divide that by 4 for the first quarter that they have not filled for the planner. That's a $22,550 savings, $57 savings. The code enforcement officer, you have allocated for they have allocated for $78,541. You divide that by the quarters, and that's a $19,541 savings. So to round those off, you have a 22 and a 19, so you're getting about a 40-something thousand dollar savings.
Yeah.
Just on not paying those two salaries for the first quarter. So I didn't want people to be confused that her 7,000 for benefits
Was the only savings.
was the only savings.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, yep.
Anybody else have any questions? Ready? What? No.
No.
All right. Anybody else? We're all set? Now we can close the public hearing? Everybody all good? All right. Public hearing is closed. All right. We move on to approval of minutes.
Are you gonna discuss any more of your budget?
I don't think they're ready to vote on the budget yet.
No, but
I
you can,
think-
you can continue discussing it as you're meeting, though, if you
Yeah.
want, just so you know. I don't wanna put anything away if you're gonna need some
Yeah,
questions.
no. Anybody, you guys ready to vote? You're not ready to vote on, are you ready to vote on the budget as it?
No,
Nope.
but you can talk amongst yourself and answer questions amongst yourself, even though you've closed, am I right, Ryan?
Yeah,
Even though you've closed your public
Yeah,
hearing.
so we can still discuss the budget, and
Get
so
more
I can still
information.
annoy people with my desire to get that third firefighter on. And I think that what I was hoping to find out is from the benefit expense point of view, where, you know, I did the math, it's 76,000, give or take. The fire chief, I think, can already do some juggling to cover the salary within his line items. So, and then hearing from the public, it sounds like there's, and you, between the 7,800 and the 41K roughly in salary savings that we did not have to spend, 49,000. There's some left over from last year. We didn't get into whatever that exact dollar amount is, right? So I think that we probably could figure out a way to pull off this third firefighter. But I think we can do it without adjusting the numbers that
adjusting
are
the numbers?
before us. In other words, I guess is where I'm going with all this. Sorry, but that was a really long road trip that I took to come around to that circle. So with that and hearing all the presentations, I am ready to vote on this budget.
Can I interrupt just for
Go
a
ahead.
moment? I have some information that just, I'm a numbers person. I don't run a department. All I do is look at numbers. So Chief, I'm gonna need you because you're gonna answer some of these questions for me. So we run numbers. That's what we do. So when we were running the fire department budget, you look at his overtime. Now, for 3 years, he's budgeted $20,000 because of the default. This year, he went up to 25, and we're still at the default. Okay. So in 2023, we had 5 full-time firefighters, and tell me if my numbers are not, I'm getting it from payroll, so she's trying to remember. We budgeted 20,000 in overtime, we spent 162, just in the wages. That's not including your New Hampshire retirement, which was another $49,000. I'm just giving you these numbers so we're not shortfall, is that your word, Ryan? Creating a shortfall. I don't want to move without the money. This budget is very tight with the cuts that we've made. I don't want to not have enough money at the end of the year. In 2024, we had 5 again. We budgeted 20,000, we spent 179 in overtime wages and $54,000 extra in retirement. 2025, we had 9 full-time firefighters. We had 5 of them for 4 months, and then in April, we went to 7, July, it went to 9, and in December, we had 8. So half of the year was Kuwait, I think, if I'm not mistaken. That's what she's trying to remember off the top of her head. So we had almost a full staff. We budgeted 20,000 in overtime, and we spent 191, which is another $55,000. So I'm just afraid, even though you do have full staff, how come the overtime is not decreasing? And maybe he can answer that, I don't want to shortfall us. That's, because you're saying use that money. This is the money he is using, is the 100 extra in his other lines. I don't want to double use that same funding. That's all I'm worried about. Do you see what I'm saying? He's using the other lines that he has in his budget to cover his overtime wages. If we use them for this one person, we won't have that. That's my fear.
Despite the fact that we have more full-time firefighters, the overtime cost is not going down, in fact, it's going up.
Right, which I can't explain. That's why I'm saying he can, I only do numbers. I don't know how that stuff works. But I just don't want to shortfall anybody.
So, a couple scenarios happen in '25. Obviously, we got the approval at town meeting to hire the 4 additional full-time firefighters. And through that budgetary process in the warrant article process, I was very transparent that the initial hiring would not ultimately or immediately decrease in overtime because we have to train the new firefighters. Firefighters in the state of New Hampshire and nationally, basically, you're not getting a lot of lateral transfer. So a seasoned firefighter coming from a bigger department or even a like-sized department coming into Alton. So we are hiring relatively green firefighter EMS personnel. So we would be doing a disservice just throwing that person to the wind and allowing them to operate without proper training experience. So we had to put on additional overtime staffing with someone that was basically like a mentor, full-time person for some of those personnel. So that obviously increased the overtime. We had several months where we were not fully staffed to those, so we were filling those vacancies. We had one person leave, I believe it was in November. One of the full-time, he moved out of state, and we had somebody else take another position, so that brought us down when we were at a full complement, back down 2 vacancies. Plus, since September, we've had a firefighter on light duty because of a workman's comp issue. So for the better part, a plethora of months in the year, we were not at full staff, or we were trying to also train the new staff on. So that was the increase in, primarily the increase for the overtime wages. There was no additional, like putting 5 or 6 people on. It was the bare minimum, trying to get the new hires up to speed. Then we had the vacancies, then we had the workman's comp issue, so it was kind of a compounding ball of wax, I guess, just rolling down the hill. So trying to maintain the same level of service, we were able to do that within our budget. It was very tight with, because the per diem staff, granted they are dedicated, but I cannot force them to work a shift because of their job classification. So they work for us when they're available. They are an asset, but that breed, I guess you can say, of firefighters is going away, so that's why we're moving towards the full-time component. So yes, there was an increase in overtime. We are hoping to get to that full staffing of, and I say that minimum of 2 people, full-timers, 3rd person on with the per diem, to then reduce overtime across the board. Granted, people still take vacations, they call out sick. There are other factors, multiple calls for service, as I explained earlier. So that was the reason why we had the increase. Also, our wage scale is a little bit different than the rest of the town. So we're based on certifications. So yes, granted, town employees for the most part have not seen a merit increase, and this will be the 3rd year potentially. The fire department also did not get the merit raises. There are increases, small, for additional certifications, and that's built into the employee handbook. So there may be an increase of 25 cents an hour because someone went and got a company officer level or rescue fighter level 3 certification. So there are small increments based on level of certification throughout the year as well. So it's hard to kind of formulate that at the budget process. But it's not a huge, in my opinion, a big take on the hourly wages there. I don't know if that answered everyone's questions. Or?
Yeah, I just didn't want you to spend the same money that we're already
That
accounting
was
for.
very helpful information, and unfortunately, it's very discouraging, too.
Yeah.
But I just don't want to see our shortfall be even shorter than it already is probably going to be. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
because what you're saying is that the money isn't there to just create it and absorb it and
Right, it's not
make it
something that's
happen.
sitting there at the end of the year.
We
He's
need to put-
utilized it for 3 years, so
It
I
needs to
just
be
don't
a-
want to say like, oh, well, use that money and say half of it's spent already. I don't, you know what I
I
mean?
think what we've been hearing all along, and, you know, with the exception maybe of this evening, is that the overtime will go down when we have our full complement of firefighters. But unfortunately, these numbers are not revealing that at all. As a matter of fact, it's the opposite that's
Right,
showing
but like
up.
he said, I mean, one person gets hurt, what do you know what I mean? Things happen, but you don't know what's gonna happen.
Also,
So
you
he's
bring
had
in
this-
the new person, he's got to have people available to train them, which is overtime on top of,
And it could take a
person
couple
that you're
months to
paying,
get that person, and you don't know, there's so many different variables to this one scenario that, you know. Right, well, yeah.
I didn't hear any of that. Were
Oh,
we
no, no, no,
supposed
she
to?
was like, they didn't have full staff the whole year. That was only for a few months, so I mean, it's,
yeah. Because there was the whole hiring process. And
The hiring
interview
process,
And the whole,
and then we had somebody move out of state, and then
Yep.
someone took another
bringing them
position.
in, training them, and have one left, and then another one left, and then you, but you have the two.
So we still have 2 out of the 4 currently, yes, and that was in the initial revised operating budget proposal.
Okay. Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome.
Drew, do we know what the surplus was from last year?
I don't know.
The surplus for?
the full budget surplus?
Yeah.
I have not got that back from the auditor yet.
Okay. And I think I asked this question during the budget season, but did the selectmen spend any of the surplus on wanted items that, you know, like they usually do, they'll carry over money?
Encumberment,
And- Yes.
Yeah, to the best,
any money
yeah,
encumbered?
to the best of my knowledge, there was no encumbered funds.
There was the firefighter warrant article and the code enforcement, the town hall staff, which was the code enforcement part-timer and the town clerk part-timer. Those 2 were carried forward. We have used all of the firefighter one, and the town hall one, the building inspector part has been used, so right now we're into the salary of the old building inspector. So that's being utilized on this person. And the town clerk, I believe, still has some funds in hers that she's using now, because right now he's not part of our budget either, that staff member.
Do we have a guess on what the surplus is?
I do not.
What was your question?
No, do we have a guess on what the surplus was from 2025?
Like your fund balance? Is that what you're saying for surplus, your
Surplus.
fund balance? Well, the board voted to spend 1.2 million on your, no.
So what was the surplus? They can't have a deficit,
Right.
so
Do
it's
I have a
illegal for them
guess?
to have a deficit. So what was the surplus? I guess that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. So we may not have the official back from the auditor yet, but
Let me see, I can run something and see if it'll tell me, hold on. I just gotta log into that. Expense sheet for 25. Let's see.
While she's doing that, everybody's looking at her.
I know.
Are the selectmen talking about, thinking about contributing money to offset tax rate this year?
We already did.
We
We did
did.
that during the
did
tax
that.
rate.
Okay.
We did that with the 1.2,
1.25.
And that was done when?
when they set the tax rate in November.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So the report that I'm running gives me about a $323,000 surplus at the end of 2025 in the expenditures from the budget. The majority of that is Department of Public Works and benefits for those open positions that he was not able to fill.
323,000 was the surplus from 2025 budget?
Yep.
Okay.
Was that accounted for in that 600 and, the 659,576 for the new proposed budget?
Was that included in the proposed current budget, the revised current budget, I think is the
Those funds have to go back into the general fund.
That's just what-
You can't carry them over into an operating budget.
Those were the savings because of the people that the Department of Public Works was not able to hire. So it's those wages, their benefit packages, their retirement, that's pretty much what all of that is.
Can you repeat that figure, please?
Which one?
320.
It's 323, hold on, I gotta open it. 323, 466, 42.
I'm sorry, 323.
466, 22. I have to make it bigger, this is small. And that could change, we just had our audit
Right, yeah,
completed, so until he tells me what to make for adjustments. Could go up, it could go down, I'm not really sure.
I want to address one comment that was brought up. Drew, maybe you would know. Drew, quick question, sorry. Mr. Wentworth had brought up the unfunded mandate for the revaluation. Do you know if that's something that can be entertained or?
I do not know. I mean, I'm working on the information that I have, which is that there are severe penalties that can be applied to a town
Okay.
if you do not do that. I have not done the research. I don't know. You mentioned
Okay.
Hampton and Concord, I guess. Both were successful in fighting that, so.
Was the
Or even if there's a
contract-
waiver, if it's not approved by the voters, like how, I mean, what can be done at that point? It's not from lack of trying.
Yeah, you know, it is the
I don't know.
law,
Is that-
you know, so it's, you know,
Talk
do you
to
want to
me.
break the law? And, you know,
No, it's not recommended.
Contract was signed, wasn't it?
What's that?
I don't know. I don't know anything about it. That's why I'm asking if anyone has any knowledge of that.
It was discussed at the Board of Selectmen's meeting with the assessor. The assessor came with that information. You know, he provided them with the RSA, 5 years. There was some talk with DRA. What was presented is there are penalties for not doing it. But we don't, those penalties aren't defined. It's not like a speeding ticket where it's 20 over, it's $175 pay. There is a process. You go to, I believe it's the, I think it's a part of the BTLA that you end up, and there's a talk, Ruben had mentioned it too, it comes down to where your evaluations are. And whether you're close or whether you're far off, and that's not a determination that we make. So, yeah, I mean, we can not do anything, and we can push it off, we can do it. I couldn't tell you 100%, and neither could the assessor tell us 100% what would happen. There was definitely, you know, he said, I don't know what those, there's no defined, you know.
One of the things that came up is the contractor that they'd been working with to do the assessments was familiar with the way our system worked, and there, I think, was going to be a shift in the software or something that would make it challenging if that same company wasn't brought on, and I think they had done it like the previous 3 years or something like that, and they were doing the last year of the cycle now, so it was somewhat complicated as far as the people that knew what they were doing to proceed, but as far as, I don't think there was an actual contract signed yet or anything like that. I don't recall specifically, I'm sorry.
Is 61.
I can see in the quick research that I'm doing right now, with my, wonderful AI on the phone, it basically says that the state would be penalizing the town through various methods. And I think that with the way the state has been pushing more and more burden upon the towns, they probably would be more and more aggressive toward a town that didn't keep up with its valuations, would be my take.
Right, I understand that, and it's not, it's just we're 3 years in default, and, it's not like everything's hunky-dory and we just decided not to do it. I mean, we have, I think, a good basis and reason to see if we can waive it or push it off for a year. It's not like we're not gonna do it, but in order to get a budget to pass, I mean, I think we have a pretty good presentation to them that things are tight.
Yeah.
And every little bit is needed right now to push forward with everything else that we need. I don't know, it doesn't hurt to ask. I don't know who to go to about that, or if there's even a waiving process to it, or deferment.
Can you come up to the table? Can you come up here, please?
I mean, we did close public input, but.
Yeah, you know what? People want to talk, let them talk. I'm good.
Hello, Jack Sleeper. I just had some quick research that I just did on the requirement, and one of the key points that I found says no waivers, exemptions, or bypass options exist in the law. Searches of statutes, DRA, assessing standards, board materials, town practices, and legal resources show no provisions for extensions, exceptions, or opt-outs for municipalities. The word shall makes it mandatory,
Okay,
if that's helpful.
so how'd Hampton do it? Thank you. Go ahead.
Just so you know.
New Durham didn't do an assessment for over 10 years.
It's the assessment ratio.
Our ratio is 61.1, so we're almost at half.
For,
For your assessment.
yep,
Assessed values.
So that means, like, when you get your reval, you're at 100%, right? And then every year, as the market changes, you get more and more out of whack. And so right now, it's time for a reval. We're at like 61% of what we should be, versus if we were right off from a reval, we'd be at 100%, right on market of what you're, you know what I mean? So
Okay.
it's time, and that affects your tax rate.
So I asked the assessor, I'm texting him, by the way, what would happen if we didn't do it? And he says the DRA would refer us to the BTLA, and we would get fined on top of being ordered to probably do our reval anyways. I'm
Okay.
just saying what he's
yeah,
saying.
no,
I don't-
thank you. I don't know
can't
anything
speak.
about it, and
Me
I
neither.
figured I'd ask. If it was a way to defer it for a year, I'd be all for that.
And I didn't question it, but I was at the BOS meeting when the assessor spoke, and he was pretty adamant that we needed to get it done, especially what Ms. Hauser
Okay.
said about the contractor we're using, they're like midway through, so to try to change that now would be substantially difficult
Okay,
coming in.
thank you.
Yep. And I appreciate the ask. Yeah.
Come up. They're gonna take it out.
Sydney Shapley. I apologize, I was late to the meeting. Can we go back to the fund balance question for a minute? Because I think what you're asking, Greg,
Can you turn the mic
Hold on.
on? Or bring it,
It's just gonna be closer.
bring it closer so people
okay,
can hear you.
sorry about that.
Okay.
Can we go back to the fund balance question? Because I think, Greg, what you were asking is, what is our surplus?
Right, that's what I
And-
wanted to know. from
Right,
last year.
and from last year, and Ryan, you're saying 1.25 million?
No. The 1.25 is, there was different parts of his question. He asked if the selectmen had used any of the fund
Right.
balance. The 1.25 was used to pay down the tax rate in November.
Okay.
So they expended that, but the actual fund balance was like 5 million, 5.2.
I've got 6 million on
Yeah.
here with an intent to, we have a minimum and we have a maximum of a fund balance. We are well over our maximum for a fund balance. We have so much surplus. I know it can't be pulled out and used now, but, I mean, I guess you could petition the state to do that. You can also petition to hold a special meeting. It costs about $10,000. But we have historically run well over our required minimum and over our maximum. Why? Why are we doing that?
Good question.
Can I, so at the end of 2025, Mr. Fuller, your fund balance on our MS 535, which is done, prepared by the auditors and submitted to Department of Revenue, was, where is it, right here? 5,251,317.
How much was it?
251,317.
Did the 1.2 come out of that, or was this after the 1.2?
This is before the 1.2. So we've already spent 1.2 on the tax rate for this year. 1.25, sorry, 1.25.
It was about 4 million, more or less.
Yeah, so you gotta pull.
Surplus right now.
So it's that,
Okay,
that number.
so what is the minimum and the maximum? Do we know what the,
I think I can pull those. Yeah, it's in here, I know it is, I just gotta find out what page it's on. Just gotta find the right paper on the DRA portal. It's part of this stuff, right here. So, in 2025, according to the Department of Revenue, the maximum recommended is 17%, which would keep it the amount at 5,827,000. And their minimum is 5%, which is 1.7.
So we're hovering just above
We're around
the middle line.
Correct. And what, you really do want to do that, because if you ever want a bond, that's what they look at, is your history of your fund balance. Not to say we're going to get a bond or anything, but that's usually what you, if you ever intend to do a new structure or whatever.
Yeah, and utilizing that money to buy down the tax rate is one of those things that can eventually catch up if you try to do that year after year.
Correct, because you're buying it down by 1.2, but next year you're not.
Right.
So you've got to come up with that 1.2 again.
Yep.
How do I phrase this? So the selectmen reduced the tax rate by the 1.2 million, right?
Utilizing the 1.2 million
Right, okay.
to reduce the tax rate.
So if they don't do it this year, and I think this is where our numbers got screwed up before, because I'm looking at the meeting we had on January 14th, and Mr. Carr, excuse me, asked what the percent increase of the town operating budget would be, and it was 11%. Was that back then?
Okay.
So now it's either, it's 4.1 or 3.4, however you look at it, if this passes, right? Is that including another buy-down from the selectmen on our tax rate
No,
this year?
no.
Okay. Okay.
Go ahead. Come up. You got to come up to the...
So I didn't quite catch all her figures, but I kind of got the gist. It was over 5.2 million minus the 1.25 million. So that still puts us 5 million.
4 million.
4 million.
I'm sorry,
4 million.
yes, thank you, 4 million. And the proposed increase that they were looking for was 659,576, correct? So is there a reason we can't use some of that surplus to absorb that instead of this going back to town vote and for a revised budget, revised vote? Is there a reason we can't take that money from the surplus to give the town the employees their raise?
I can answer.
Yeah, this is a tough one.
So the answer to that question is, the Board of Selectmen couldn't just offset it. They still would need to go to a special meeting because they can't utilize that money without a town vote. So the town would have to vote, and in that particular circumstance, the board would have to vote to offset the modified proposed operating budget by the fund balance by a certain dollar amount. That would be included in the warrant for the special meeting, and then that would have to be approved. But yes, the board could say we want to offset it by $300,000. And that's fine, it would work in the sense that the only problem is that, again, that's gonna carry forward, because you pay it down by the 300,000, that's 300,000 more you need to come up with next year on top of whatever increase is above that, because
So I
It
guess
carries
my
forward.
question is, if they do that and offset it, and that doesn't become the budget, will that become the operating budget
Yes.
next year?
yes, it would
So-
become, we would be obligated in next year's
For
default.
the
moving-
entire,
For the entire amount, even though they offset $300,000 or $400,000.
669.
Yes, correct.
So the operating budget would be the 10,791,000.
No, it would be the 10-1, it would be the 10-1, the revised, the 10,100,000 and the number on the right. I don't have it in front of me, right, it's 10-1, so.
Yeah, I see.
Okay.
Okay, so it would be the 10-1. Would be the operating budget next year instead of the 9.7. For default.
For default, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
That would be the default before all of the required
Legal
increases
changes,
that
things like that.
through contracts and benefits and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that would be the baseline.
Yes.
Yep.
So Beth, I think what you're thinking is that the 1.2 comes into effect there, and it doesn't on that article. But when we go to set the tax rate,
Yep.
say we had a 10 million, we paid it down by 1.25.
Right.
But next year, like, so we're raising less in our tax rate combined with our county and school and all that. But you don't see that, but that won't affect that, it'll go up. It'll just
Okay.
be up by that much more that we
Right.
would need to raise when we
Right.
set the rate.
To Ms. Hughes' point, even though it could be done, I think the way we're doing it now, putting it back before the voters, is the correct way to do it, because we are already in a third-year default budget. If we just allocated funds for raises that people already voted down, they're gonna be mad. So I think we do, I know it's a huge, long process, and I appreciate everybody's time that you put into it, but I think it's a process that we have to go to make these changes. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
So, just so everybody understands, we use money from the fund balance every single year to offset taxes?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. What?
Oh, I'm sorry. We use money from the fund balance every year to offset the tax rate.
No, we do not.
Right.
Not every year.
Okay, I apologize, almost every year. We've never used as much as 1.2 million, but we've gone as high as 700,000. We've done as low as 300,000, 250,000. So this isn't something new that we do to help control the tax rate. It's a very rare year that we don't utilize it.
What were those years that you're quoting? Like, what's the frequency that you're finding?
Well, for the 9 years I was on the select board, we did it almost every year. Loring was on the select board. How often did we utilize the fund balance to help offset? Yes, it's almost an every year thing, but I'm looking like in 2015, 450,000,
Of
16.
recent years?
Looks like in 2020, 700,000. I think the year a lot of, I don't know, what year did you do upstairs? I think that was one of the largest years.
So can I ask where you're getting this information, and is it from paying down the tax rate or using it on warrant articles? Because that makes a difference.
No, I understand. I understand. I asked a while back for, on a right-to-know request, how much we had used.
So that could be
For
on
each
warrant
year.
articles, because if you
No,
spend it on a
not-
warrant.
Not unless you
Okay.
guys gave me the wrong information.
We
But
might-
we
it
do it
depends.
at all.
Because usually every year, yes, we would use it in warrant articles, absolutely, I would agree. To pay
No,
down,
I
like,
understand that, but
to pay down
To pay
stuff.
down the fund balance, I mean, to use the surplus to help offset the tax rate. I mean, Paul, we've done it years and years and years on the board. I mean, we should be able to go back in here and see what we've used in the previous years.
They transferred over from using it to pay the fund balance to try to pay one-time warrant articles. Because based on the budgeting practices, if you pay a one-time warrant article, it doesn't carry forward as it does when you pay down the tax rate. So for years, I think what you're talking about is like 21, 22, 23, where we paid down a series of warrant articles, or I shouldn't say pay them down, we raised the money from the fund balance to pay one-time warrant articles. Last year was the first year in probably 2 or 3 years that we've paid down the tax rate.
I'm looking at our 2020 tax rate setting in the portal. There was no fund balance to reduce taxes, but there was 185,000 voted from fund balance in warrant articles. I can go to year after year if you want me to.
So we stopped using it to offset taxes and started using it so that people would vote yes on warrant articles, thinking it wouldn't affect their taxes and, okay.
You use it on warrant articles because it's not being raised again, like one time. So in 2021, we used 496,000. None on the tax rate part, all on warrant articles. Like year after year, that's what they recommend.
Can you call me out of order? You've closed public input, and maybe somebody can make a motion and get this thing going. Call me out of order for getting up and talking. Close public input, right?
I appreciate that, Lauren, but we do want to hear, and as more conversation goes, the public has more questions.
Well, we hear, and this is actually probably the first time that mostly that we've had anyone here that was even interested in what was going on. So it's nice to hear from the people what they're thinking and what they would like to see done.
So I'll make a motion to retroactively open public session.
I'll
Oh, I
second.
know.
Go ahead.
So, do we have any more discussion?
On the budget. I still would like to see a way for them to figure out how they can fill that one position in the fire department.
Yeah, do we have anything close to a rough estimate of what it would actually take? I know the overtime thing makes it really flexible and hard to get your hands around, but I would be interested to know, like, would 80,000, like, what would be a reasonable?
The full one?
Anyone? Sorry.
So while we're waiting for that information, I would take back my comment about the fireworks from earlier, because the money we could save from fireworks and probably the overtime from paying personnel for that night could help fund the additional personnel we're seeking. And on the priority scale, I feel that's top.
Thank you.
How much was that fireworks then?
22 something.
Okay, so what have we got? 22 fireworks.
Number.
7,800.
So the 141,296 is the total, not 91, for one position?
Correct. Like I said, we estimated overtime, you don't know. I mean, you could take that right out if you wanted. I mean, I just know it's a tight budget, and I'd hate to have it shorter than the need. That's all.
Yeah.
Whether he can work with that, I don't,
It's more like
that's up to the
50%.
fire chief.
By the time you actually get the person in there working, right, you'll end up losing 6 months.
Yeah, as far as those two vacant positions, yeah, it's gonna be a while. And there's nobody there to supervise them, so. So that's, what, that's 40, 50,000, probably?
What you do is you offer to.
So actually, that would bring that number to 474, 790. So 56 plus 7. So we have almost 64,000 coming out of this. All right, maybe we'll knock it off to, make it 60 because we've got part-time contract. I'm okay with that.
I was actually,
You weren't, okay. I was, the fire chief and the finance manager and I just hammered out a few things, but, if the board is so inclined, I think that we can safely come to a number at 80 grand, which would cover the salary at 100%, which if we ended up going to, we're funding that salary's always there. That would be a residual to the benefit side of things. And for this year, the fire departments is that they'll be able to offset. And obviously, if we have any other vacancies, that will wash the benefit side of things on our end of it. But going too aggressive wouldn't carry that baseline salary. And that's what we're trying to avoid, because moving forward, we don't want to have to be faced to lay off an employee that we just brought on this year because we don't have their full wages covered. So, but
so that, just so, Ryan, before you step away, where is that 80 being broken out, into which line?
so it'd be, so under the full-time wages, under the fire department, there would be the 65, what is it?
Basically a 64.5.
And that covers the overtime as well?
That's their baseline wages.
Oh, on the
with
holiday.
holiday pay.
Holiday pay.
With the holiday pay?
What's he saying it is? 51?
That doesn't match the numbers we were just handed.
You have them all.
So we were just handed roughly 53 plus 3.
There was two positions, I don't know which one you got, obviously. Our two vacancies are for a firefighter position and then a lieutenant's position. So that initial, first vacancy I would like to fill is the lieutenant, so how many sheets did Laura get you? Just the one? Papers, I don't know what spreadsheets.
I did this one.
I have this.
Okay, and is there,
And then I have another one that,
This is filling one of the positions.
firefighter, not the lieutenant.
So I
This
did the firefighter.
Yeah, see, that's,
Right,
so this
because
one, this was
he's doing the higher up guy.
He's
That's
doing
the difference.
lieutenant, okay.
lieutenant versus the firefighter position.
Okay,
That's the 64.5. Firefighter position is
So
the
if you
one
did
that's up
that, it
on
would adjust my numbers then. You have to adjust my figures as well.
and is it, are we utilizing a lieutenant classification because of the EMT firefighter level 1, 2, whatever?
So basically, lieutenant classification is for a shift supervisor, someone that, when they're on shift, they're in charge. Ultimately, I can't be there 24/7, Captain O'Brien can't be there 20, so basically, that person is in charge, basically our shift supervisor, middle manager person, so I think we need to build from the top down and have that in place, and the original proposed budget had both positions, the lieutenant and firefighter in there.
But if you had to choose,
Legit, I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
staff is staff, I know it's, but the lieutenant, obviously, it's someone that's a little bit more experienced to
yeah,
have
and it
that.
raises the whole functionality of your
Correct.
department 24/7, I
Yes,
get
ma'am.
that.
It also enables you to hire somebody perhaps who already has the qualifications
Correct.
and some experience right out of the gate.
Correct,
So there's not a long ramp-up period.
correct. And I have somebody in the pipeline, we're just waiting for this process hopefully to play out in the positive. So, obviously, the Board of Selectmen have that final say on hiring, but
Yeah. All right, so you believe that the 80,000 covers your end of,
that covers my end of the baseline wages and holiday pay with 15,000-ish left over towards the benefit side of things.
okay. Understanding that we're already
Correct.
25% through the year. So it's really 75% is the actual salary burden, as well as the burden on the benefit end of things, which is why the 80 grand we think will cover that, because that is taking that into account. Am I correct in that assumption? I am not
The
correct
80's
in
only
that?
taking care of his salary, right? Because it's at the higher.
Well, if we've got a base
It's
salary,
65
it's,
for his salary.
Correct.
And then his holidays.
Yep.
And then some overtime, right?
But it's like,
So you're not including anything.
almost half a year.
so it'd be 65.
What did he change the rate? Still should be the 65, right? That's the guy.
Well, it would be the same.
So
Right,
a
that's what it
lieutenant's
says.
position at $28 an hour times 42 hours a week, because they work a 42 average, 52 weeks is 61,152. Holiday pay, I based it on 120, I think we're up to 100,
120.
it's 120, at that hourly rate is 33.60. For just those two wage lines, put me in that 64 and some change.
Okay.
That is my math, but again, I'm a fireman, so.
All right, but that's for an entire year.
That is
my
for an
point,
entire year,
right?
correct.
So, but we're really only filling this position
Right now, 6 months at best.
probably, yeah, so probably one half of that.
Correct.
And, I mean, I'm gonna come back to the reasoning on all of this in a second. So if you knock that in half, we're gonna call it 33, just easy numbers, right? Then we have the benefit end of things, and of that 33, we're probably gonna be seeing another 30 in benefits by the time we're all said and done. Give or take, right? So we're basically, we're back up to the 60-something thousand total. My apprehension with using just those numbers is that we're cutting ourselves short for next year. Because now you have a position and a half, essentially, that you're gonna wanna fund for next year. So I think that and this is why Ryan, when you got up and you said you thought you were at 80 and I was at 90, I was upping the number a little bit to soften the blow of the position and a half next year to make it more like a position and a quarter. So, that's kind of where I was going in my head with this.
I concur with that, obviously. This gets us through this year, but if this becomes our new default, and we go to default, next year, we're behind the 8 ball.
Exactly, Right. So I don't know if the board followed any of that crazy logic. But I would propose that we figure out a way to put 90,000 into this budget. And the separation, you know, some will have to go to, you know, fire full-time and overtime, and some will go to benefits. We'll let the smart people figure that out. But that's kind of my thought. I'm hearing crickets.
Well, no, I mean, I would support that. I mean, I think there is the need in the community, and I think it will be on all of us to communicate and explain why we're doing what we're doing, and bring the data, and find new avenues perhaps of communicating. Because we are setting ourselves up for inflation.
Yes.
Finding the money.
So is your recommendation adding 90,000 to the budget?
That is my recommendation.
I just want to get you a number.
So not take it out here, but
We're adding 90,000.
Add it to the budget.
To the new
Yeah.
bottom line.
With the theory being that there may be some other monies, you know, over the
bring us to
course, so that
22,
next year, when you have to fund that at a full 12-month, that maybe there can, you know, even if we did go default, you know, there could be some finagling.
I'm gonna trust the process.
I have a number. I'm just waiting for them to.
So you're saying you add 90,000 to the 659,000 that's already there?
Like to add 90,000 to the budget. So yes, if you're looking at just the delta, that would increase by $90,000, correct?
To the 300.
You have to put it somewhere, you just can't add 90, you have to put it,
Right, so there would be, hang on, now you're gonna make me
No,
do
no.
real math, aren't you?
did the selectmen get this steep, or what?
No,
No.
Fire department wages,
How come?
No, we'll have to separate it out eventually. We'll separate it out.
to the
You'll just give us
wages.
a number and we'll.
So the fire department wages would go down 100,000
well, that's
instead
what
of
I had offered.
190? Or whatever it is?
No, they're going
No,
up.
up.
They're going up
Up.
30, whatever it is, 33, is that what he said? 32, 33? And
So
then the
they're
rest
going
would
up.
go to his benefits. Well, the holiday line would increase,
Yeah.
whatever.
Just divvy it up.
Okay, I see it.
But he's, yeah, no, 30's going to his wages. He said 6 months' worth of wages, right?
Well, so that's, yeah, so when I started doing the math, I started at the 6 months, but then what I wanted to do was add on to that so that we're not looking at filling a position and a half next year, we're filling a position in a quarter, or a position in a third. So less of a blow for next year. So that's why I think the original math came out to $64,000 based on half a year. So I said 90,000.
Doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense to you?
I understand the theory, but it's gonna be interesting divvying the money up
That's what
among town
okay,
lines.
so I'm not the only one.
She's trying to figure out where you're intending that split to be between benefits and wages.
Let's go into minutes.
Okay.
That is more important because of
You guys do the
what was
ratio.
carried forward as the new default.
Gotcha.
Or the new operating budget,
But we understand.
but yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So,
I do understand.
okay.
But he's doing 6 months and a quarter or a third or an eighth or something. I
Well,
don't
it's
know.
gonna be very hard for you to have to back it.
I got the 6 months. That's an easy
We
one.
can back into it.
Yeah,
We will figure it out.
all right.
Cause you just vote on a total number, you know, you're not.
We
voting
will divvy it
individual
out.
departments, it's just one number.
So the
One
only two
amount.
lines that are changing on him are wages and holiday.
Yeah,
So yeah, we can figure it out.
right, they're just voting on the bottom line number.
Right, they're just voting on a number.
Yeah, the one more, one number.
So did you get that? The 10,222,064? Okay.
Yep, that's what I'm looking at.
This lady,
Roughly 61% would be that.
writing that number down. Drew says
that's the same as the
61.
assessment ratio.
That's right. Ratio assessment is going to the fire department.
I just want to make one comment before you guys go to vote. I would like to thank the Budget Commission for all your hard work. I know you guys do not have an easy job, so I personally would like to say thank you.
We appreciate that.
Thank you. So that's my motion.
Oh, you're making a motion.
Put 61%.
Just for the record, can you?
Can you clarify, can you
Oh,
state
you-
it,
you-
please?
Just the bottom line, what
Yes.
that bottom line
State
is
it.
for the
Yeah.
motion.
So the bottom line is I'm making a motion that we add $90,000 to the overall budget with the distribution of that 90,000 to be proportionally done to cover the wages and the benefits of a full-time lieutenant on the fire department.
Nicely done.
How'd I do?
That was very explicit.
Yeah, well, that was good.
And the bottom line that you guys want to move forward, is that a separate motion?
What's the 90, the 10, 1, 32, 64 plus 90 grand? What'd you come up with?
It'll be
10 million.
10,222,064.
I can't add 9 and 13 right now, so that's.
And
what I
that.
got.
Making the overall operating budget that number.
Yes.
All right, do we have a second?
Can you just, for the record, speak the bottom line?
What is the bottom line?
It's $10,222,064.
$10,222,064
And 0 cents.
and 0 cents. Thank you. That is my motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Opposed?
Greg? I was counting on you, Greg.
And what's his face is out.
Okay. Now, we move on to approval of minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from January 14th, 2026.
Second.
Greg seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Any opposed? Nope. We have one abstention.
I wasn't here.
Yeah, you weren't here. I was glad I wasn't.
Okay. Any other business?
I have one or two quick items of
Yeah.
business that I hope we can take care of.
Sure.
Relative to the Budget Committee going forward, because I accidentally missed one session, if there's any way the chair or co-chair or somebody could just send up maybe a 48-hour notice reminder to the whole commission prior to a meeting.
I typically email the agenda out a couple days prior when I post it
For every meeting?
for every meeting.
Okay, somehow I missed that, and I apologize. So if that can maintain the standard practice.
It's usually the
Yeah.
minutes from the last meeting, the agenda for the upcoming meeting.
So in addition to minutes, and this is only because I felt embarrassed at the deliberative,
Sorry.
if there is an abstention or somebody who's not voting in favor, if we could just have in the minutes a really short explanation of what the reasoning was, because I can't remember all the reasons we made decisions, but I know that is a question that commonly comes up. Why was somebody opposed? So if we can just capture that information.
In the minutes.
That can only be captured in the minutes if the person that votes against it says.
States it.
Well, right, so I
Right now,
think,
they don't.
right, but we could ask that, right? Because again, it is a question that I have seen come up over and over again in deliberative sessions. So just offering a rationale for opposing. So it's not twisting anybody's arm, but if,
But Carol sends out the emails. all the time, because to eliminate any issues
Right,
with
no, I get
91A.
that. So, in the minutes, if that could include,
So that is
I know you can't read it.
the committee on the board to, when you vote no, to say, I'm voting no because, I can't put something
Yep.
in the minutes that isn't said.
No, that's fine.
Or ask the
So I'm
person
going to,
why, and if they want to answer,
Right.
they can.
and then,
Okay,
what I'm trying to figure out is, then how can we have that information? Or is it incumbent upon every individual member of this commission to have those minutes handy by during a deliberative, so if we need to research that?
Well, I think
Okay.
you could ask at
All
the
right.
next
Yep.
meeting, right?
If it were me, if I were a committee member, I would probably have some sort of a binder or a
Yep.
folder.
With the
you
things
all,
highlighted, yeah.
So that when you're at the deliberative,
No.
it's like, oh, I can look that
Yeah,
up. 'cause
okay, no, I appreciate it. I just wanted some clarifying and get myself on the right track. Thank you for your patience.
sure.
We on other business?
Okay, any other business?
So are the selectmen going to review the Saturday and the times?
Yes,
For
we
this
will
vote?
discuss it.
That was one reason why I voted against it, was because Saturday 7 to 3 in June, I'm against that.
So you vote, just so we're clear, you voted against the budget
that's one
because of
reason.
the day that we're voting?
That's one reason.
Okay.
Second is that I had people call me and say they had a bite at the apple and it failed. There shouldn't be a second bite at the apple. And I kind of agree with that.
Okay.
And normally when there's revotes like this, they always pass because, from what I understand, it's set in a date and time, or it's when, let me back up. The school in the past, when they had a default budget, they would vote on it in the summertime, when a lot of the people who had voted against the budget they were on vacation, they were busy, and they didn't vote. So,
Looks like we got an agenda for next week.
that's it.
Okay, anybody else? Anything I want to add?
I make a motion to adjourn?
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're out of here.
Thank you for your math skills, your research skills, your booming voice.
You know, it's nights like this, I wonder why I quit drinking.
Well,